Hello there, mate. How's it going? And welcome back to Football Therapy with me, your host, Jan. I do hope you're doing well, mate. Really do hope that, as always. And welcome back to Chelsea News, daily series here on the channel where I reflect on what's been said about Chelsea, yada, yada, yada. In today's video, the Josh Acheampong head loss meltdown only to be cooled off by journalist briefings. Very interesting. Obviously, that all popped off after my last upload. Kepa to Arsenal. The Jamie Gittens fee drama continuing. More Dortmund news with a Carney Chukwuemeka extended loan. Hopefully we can implement that in sweetening some deals with Gittens. A little bit more potentially on another attacker. Could it be Morgan Rogers? Of course, Aston Villa qualifying for Europe but not getting that sweet Champions League money. So maybe they'd be forced to sell a Morgan Rogers. And the goalkeeper story keeps rotating around. Mike Penders will not be loaned back to his Belgian club. Will he stay at Chelsea? Will he be considered an option to fight for the first team shirt? Or, again, more stories popping up about Ter Stegen of Barcelona. So, plenty of things to get our grubby little mitts into. As always, thank you for joining me. Thank you for coming and hang out here on Football Therapy, for you are all welcome here. Everyone's welcome. Come on in, sit down. If you want to show some sweet love, just drop a like on the video. Subscribe if you're yet to do so, but only if you want to. But hit the bell if you choose to. Let's go. Where to start? Alright, Miguel Delaney yesterday of The Independent, I believe, published an article saying about how Borussia Dortmund are interested in young Chelsea Academy defender Josh Champong, who of course is an excellent young talent. I was hearing this straight out of Cobham Athletic podcast boys talk about both Tyreek George and Josh Acheampong respectively, and they're saying Josh is more useful and more likely, or would benefit more from staying with the team, and maybe a Tyreek George, the 19-year-old, going on a loan and being a starter for like a Premier League team somewhere, which I sort of understand and endorse. I do think, I do think Tyreek George would be useful to Chelsea. I'm not saying we need to loan him, but I can understand how it's an alluring prospect for him to maybe go and get some experience. Josh Champong, I think, is a different story. Though I actually think he's been used less than Tyreek George, I think he's rated higher by the Chelsea manager Enzo Maresca, who of course is always waxing lyrical about him, saying he's in love with him. But he's used him in multiple different positions, Josh. Centre-back, full-back, inverting full-back, a player that goes up into the advancing pocket like Cucurella. And he's looked pretty darn good in all these appearances, and very technically adept, very strong. Just looks like a great player that looks ready. For my money, he looks ready. He's the backup to Reece James. He's a player that can, by the end of the season, could be a starter. Why the ruddy heck not? So I'm very, very pleased with him. Miguel Delaney published an article of Dortmund. Of course, we're negotiating with Dortmund for Jamie Gittens and Carney Chukwuemeka. That Dortmund want Josh, and they think maybe a £35 million, not euros, pounds, which is, 45 million euros, could tempt Chelsea into selling. That was the story. And I think Alex Goldberg confirmed that this is genuine interest, and they were trying to use Josh Champong as a bargaining chip to get Jamie Gittens going the other way. Lots of Chelsea fans understandably reacted badly, including myself. Because even if Chelsea likes Josh, there's this idea that £35 million pure profit, unexpected. Wow, is such a huge boost for any club, let alone Chelsea, who's doing a lot of business. But we saw loads of quick responses and briefings. I think Chelsea social media team admin posted something about Josh very shortly afterwards. Fabrizio Romano, of course, journalists like all the other big ones, gets links directly from Chelsea. Tweeted this, or should I say posted on X. Chelsea maintain their position on Josh Acheampong. No intention to sell the player this summer. New contract was agreed a few months ago, and he's seen as a key part of the project, despite interest from several clubs. And yeah, man, it would not surprise me at all that there is loads of interest, because he's wicked. Clubs will see him. How old is Josh Champong? Is he 20 now? I know he's young, like Tariq. Oh, he's 19 as well. He's recently 19, so he's still a teenager. He's turned 19 at the beginning of the summer, slash spring. So he's very, very young. Loads of teams will be watching him play in certain high-profile games. Like, damn, this kid looks good and positionally versatile. And you sign him, you could have him for a few years, and then you could sell him for a big profit as well. So it doesn't surprise me at all how a multitude of clubs are interested. But yeah, loads of other, briefings came out afterwards. Chelsea see him as an important, part of the project. They convinced him to re-sign. He re-signed. Maresca's always talking about how much he loves him. It would surprise me. I think Maresca would be annoyed had they'd sold him, especially when Chelsea are apparently in such a strong financial position. Selling other players, selling women's teams and hotels and car parks, and he's clearly a perfect player for Enzo Maresca. So why would you want to take that away, eh? Even if it's 35 million quid pure profit. So very pleased to hear the the counter to that Miguel Delaney. I think essentially what it is Dortmund are interested and will like him, but that doesn't mean for a second Chelsea will sell him. Right, I spent quite a bit of time on that, so let's ramble on through quickly. Kepa Arrizabalaga to Arsenal. Adios, hermano, hombre. £5 million release clause activated. This was Chelsea extending his long 7-year deal. I remember when he signed. I was at Wembley when he refused to come off. It was mental. Ups and downs at Chelsea, mainly downs. The extension was basically go play for someone, they'll pay your wages, no loan fee, I'd imagine. And then, if you get seen as good again, which he did, we make 5 million quid. And his book value would have been, done anyway. So Chelsea get money for him, which they're very pleased about. He's going to Arsenal to be second choice. He's passed his medical, says Fabrizio Romano. So yeah. Is what it is. I reckon part of Kepa in his head will think, even though he knows he's going to be second choice, he'll probably want to live in London. The Emirates and their training facilities is all pretty nice. And he'll probably have a little, because he's only 30, Kepa. He'll probably be thinking in his head, like, if I train really well, if I do well in my, moments, like the chances I'm given, I could, because Ray is 29, so they're similar age, and 30 has still got plenty in the tank as a goalkeeper. But I reckon part in his head he'll be thinking, yeah, I believe in myself. I can become Arsenal's number one in time. We'll see what happens. All right, so Jamie Gittens. First of all, we are doing a lot of talking with Dortmund because of Carney, Chukwuemeka and Gittens, and they've probably made a vocal inquiry about Josh Champong. Now, Dortmund are close to agreement in terms of extending Carney Chukwuemeka's loan. Of course, Dortmund qualified for the Champions League, which was a huge, huge thing for them financially. You've got the sporting director saying they don't want to get weaker, they don't want to get strong, they want to get stronger. I mean, Carney, by the way, is an excellent footballer. He's really good. Dortmund's probably the perfect club for him. It's just that great profile. He can ball out with Job, Bellingham, and Deman, and have a great time. So he's struggled with injury at Chelsea and Dortmund, but he's made 10 Bundesliga appearances. The midfielder has featured in all of Dortmund's games in the Club World Cup with the German side, getting through to the last 16. So he's been a part of that, and I think they like him. And they've got the money to probably loan him and pay his wages, of course, because of the Club World Cup, of course, because of the Champions League money, and they want to be better again, essentially, Borussia Dortmund. So I do see them essentially getting Carney Chukwuemeka over the line. I think Chelsea will see that as a good opportunity as well. But amidst all these inquiries that we're batting away for Acheampong, amidst the negotiations for Carney's loan, of course, the story of Jamie Gittens percolates on. Sorry, crazy hay fever. In the background, they're talking about they want 65 million euros now, we're seeing in the media, which is about 55 million pounds. It's too much. It's too much because he's not the finished article. 55 million quid for a Dortmund player who's not the finished article. He's not Jude Bellingham. He's not Erling Haaland, who've gone for big money elsewhere. I think, Haaland didn't necessarily go for huge money to City, but it was like, the wages and everything. So yeah, man, it's not necessarily Ousmane Dembele to Barcelona or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So he's simply not got the money, the numbers to demand this insane fee. I think personally that it's nonsense and silly, their price tag. I think Chelsea were willing to do near that, but with bonuses. Look, we know this deal will almost certainly get done. He's agreed a 7-year deal. He didn't even feature in the squad for their last match in the Club World Cup, where before he did feature. So they're obviously feeling they're close enough that, don't get injured on the pitch. So we're not going to put you in squads. How would I feel about this? Let's just say 55 million quid then. Let's say that, 55 million quid. If it's 40 million pounds as a base fee and 15 in bonuses, and in the 40 million pound base fee you pay in 3 installments, I'm kind of okay with it. Clearly he's the one that we want. We keep going back in for him. So if we really do truly want him, if Maresca really does truly want him, we are in incredible need on the left-hand side. If he's the guy, the perfect guy, then you sort of got to pay the money for him. And it is tricky. So let me know your thoughts on Gittens and what your price max would be. And, are you like me? Would you do like a 40 million, 45 plus bonuses? I do think it happens, obviously. I just think this is inevitable, but it's just however much we pay. Right, we will sign another attacker on top. I'm kind of pretty certain about that. Of course, we've been linked to the likes of Joao Pedro, who Newcastle want, Mohamed Kudus, who we made an inquiry for a couple of seasons ago before he went to West Ham. Of course, now he's at West Ham. He's got a huge release clause fee that we'd never pay, but it's sort of feeling out whether the options are there. We know West Ham want a couple of Chelsea players. Graham Potter, the ex-Chelsea manager, is the gaffer over there. He wants Dewsbury Hall, which I think would be perfect move. He wants Rob Sanchez, which I'd very much be in favour of doing. So we'll see what happens there. Second attacker for Chelsea. Well, provided we sort out Nkunku, provided we sort out Joao Felix, provided we sort out Raheem Sterling sales / loans. I mean, Nkunku has to be sold. The other two are probably going to be loans, let's be honest. We're being linked also with the likes of Morgan Rogers. Now, I would be really in favour of this. Although he would come to Chelsea expecting to be a starter. He'd be like, I play for England. I play for a European qualifying Premier League team. I'm not going to be benched for Jamie Gittens. That's what he'd probably be thinking. Though he's not a left winger, it would probably indicate Maresca is going to slightly change how he plays. But we are looking for this sort of auxiliary. He does very much fit the Joao Pedro Kudus bill in terms of how he plays Morgan Rogers. Except maybe, certainly like Joao Pedro can play as a striker. I can't imagine you'd want to play Morgan Rogers as a striker. You'd probably be losing something there. I think it would be a very exciting signing. In the same way I got very excited about like Pedro Neto. I was incredibly gassed about Cole Palmer, which I got a lot of abuse for, but he turned out to be alright. But I think Morgan Rogers has like the streets a bit more already than Cole Palmer did when we signed Cole. I think I'd be very interested in signing Morgan Rogers. Not for insane money. I think wage terms would be not an issue because we can do the 25% or the 20% pay increase because we're in the Champions League, and I think we'd be probably giving him a pay rise anyway, even with our wage structure from Aston Villa. So I'll be very excited if we sign Morgan Rogers and Jamie Gittens. Job done, mate. I'll be very, very happy with that. Amidst this all, like I said, talking about Penders and all dem man, we are, of course, still being linked with other goalkeepers, senior goalkeepers, of course. Ter Stegen's been caught offside again. Mark Burris talking about that. Lots of articles rotating saying Chelsea are still in with a goalkeeper. Of course, I did a video yesterday speaking a little bit more in detail on the goalkeeper situation. I just want a new goalkeeper, man. I'd love for Penders to be the truth, the guy, and if he doesn't go on loan, if he does indeed stay, although I still have this feeling he's going to go to Strasbourg, which would be great for him, by the way. I imagine he speaks French, if he's from the French-speaking part of Belgium. It'd be perfect. And they're in Europe as well. They're playing Conference League, so it would be a perfect loan. But if there's a slight inkling in Chelsea, like, keep him around, because, the first 6 months of training and he might shock you in a couple of cup games. He might just be undeniable. Maybe. There's, of course, all these briefing and reports. Oh, he's not ready. And he's probably not ready. But I wonder if there are people at Chelsea going, do you know what I mean? Yeah, man. I put it out to you. Let me know your thoughts. Of course, keep it locked here to Football Therapy, because whenever stories break, I will be here. I'll be there to bring them to you. If you've reached the end of the video, you like the content, which means you might like Football Yannick, the sister channel where I also upload every single ruddy day. Non-Chelsea stories, big stories in football, but speaking as a Chelsea fan. So if you dig that, thank you for going to support Football Yannick. Enjoy the football if you can, and I'll see you soon. Peace.